So the third studio album by the band System of a Down has a very cool and interesting story behind it. Now, before I get into that, let me tell you how I originally got into System of a Down, or even knew who they were, because I didn't before this. When I was in about 6th grade, I lived with my grandparents, and she would always subscribe to magazines. So there was magazines always showing up at our front door. And I believe it was a People magazine that I was going through one day, and there was a little slip in there. It said, send this in, you get 5 free magazines if you pay for one. So I kept flipping. There was another slip in there, and it said, send this slip in. It was a music company, and you can pick 5 free CDs, whatever you want. They had a long list of CDs you could select from. So I sent it in. There wasn't a lot of rock options, but there was a few, and I ordered them. And one of those options was System of a Down's Toxicity, their second studio album, which was a 3-time multi-platinum certified album, by the way. Awesome album. I ordered it. It came in, ripped it open, threw it in the CD player, and just rocked out for the next few months. That's how I got into them. But we're not here to talk about that album today. We're here to talk about their third studio album, which is what I'm going to get into right now. So, the third studio album by the band System of a Down, it was a record called Steal This Album. And we'll get into why we're talking about it here in a minute. But first, I want to talk about the album art, the cover of the album. All it was a CD. And it was a CD just like we used to buy when we would, go to the store, buy this big old thing of CDs, all blanks, so we could go home, throw it in, and burn a CD with whatever music we wanted on there. That's all it was one of those CDs. But it looked like in Sharpie at the top, it said the band's name, System of a Down, and then at the bottom, it said, in parentheses, Steal This Album. That's all the cover art was, and very generic, but very cool, and I'll tell you why. So there's something else I want to go over real quick, and most of you might not know this or remember this, but those that do know what I'm talking about. There was a guy named Sean Parker and a guy named Sean Fanning. They were two friends in the late 90s. They came up with this platform for them two and their friends to be able to share MP3 files back and forth. This platform was called Napster. Now, Napster ended up blowing up, and by the time 1999 rolled around, there was a ton of people on this platform, and it was gaining a lot of popularity. By the time 2001 rolled around, there was millions and millions of people on the platform using it every day, and millions of files were being transferred back and forth, mostly all music and all for free. So this thing was insane. But in the year 2000, the drummer for Metallica, Lars Ulrich, he got wind of this, and him and his bandmates, they got together, hired a lawyer, and they sued Napster because there was a ton of their music on the platform that people were just getting for free. I mean, insane. And there's a real funny story. I don't know if you remember when MTV actually played music, but there was this thing called the MTV Video Music Awards. They invited Sean Fanning on there to be a presenter. When he walked on stage, he was wearing a Metallica shirt. Lars Ulrich was sitting in the crowd. I remember that. The look on Lars's face was priceless. This dude, he couldn't smile, he couldn't frown. He just looked so infuriated seeing this guy up there wearing the band's shirt. It was crazy, but yeah. Napster was something very huge for a moment, but it was kind of a bad thing as well. So the reason that I bring up Napster, you got to realize there's a lot of careers people take, lines of work out there where, let's say the music industry, Hollywood, the movie industry, things like that, there is a ton of money that gets put out there to create these albums, to create these movies, and you got so many people that are working on these projects, and everybody's got to get paid. So when you put that money out there, your hopes are that whatever you put into it, it's going to come back to you 3, 4, 5, 10 times what you put in. That's the hope. That's everybody's goal. Now, if you put out a certain amount and you don't even get back what you put in, it kind of sucks. But in the end, if you love what you're doing, you're going to keep doing it. Which brings me to myself. You. Anybody out there on YouTube, I don't succeed unless you like my videos, subscribe to the channel, and share them with friends and family. That's how I succeed. I'm putting myself out there. This is my emotional money. And there's a lot of real money too that's going into this. So it only helps me if you do stuff like that for me and the channel. That'll help me grow. And that's how I get my return back. So now let's get back to System of a Down. So System of a Down was in the studio working on what was going to be their third studio album. Now, they had a target release date of somewhere around late 2002, which is what ended up happening. While they were in the studio, they were working on this album. The man that was producing this record was none other than the legend himself, Rick Rubin. So now, early 2002, somehow, there was some very low quality music that was being released onto the internet. It was being leaked from, well, I'm assuming from System of a Down's camp, but if not, somebody around them or close to them leaked these MP3s out there onto the internet. And when System of a Down fans got a hold of this, it spread like wildfire. They were saying, these are new songs, this is the new part of the new album by System of a Down. They started dubbing it the name Toxicity 2. So you gotta think, people like myself, we're not the hugest System of a Down fan, but I do like their music. You know, I'm gonna hear this stuff and be like, oh wow, this is their new album? Okay, I'm gonna tell my friends and family, other people that like rock music, hey, listen to this. This is early release stuff from System of a Down, their new album. And I'm gonna be thinking the name of the album is gonna be Toxicity 2 because it's on the internet. That's what I'm reading. That's what's being spread around. So, you know, we read too much into what we see on the internet, and when something like this happens, you're probably thinking you're getting early access to something that you shouldn't be hearing. And that was the case. There was tons of people hearing all this stuff, thinking it's part of the new System of a Down album, and they think they got the inside scoop on what the new album was called. They're thinking it's Toxicity 2. So when the band got wind of this leaked material being out on the internet, they released a statement saying they were extremely disappointed that fans were hearing unfinished material. They were hearing non-album quality material because it was such low quality. And there was another statement that came out later. It was a report, and it said that all this material was just outtakes and B-side of stuff that wasn't good enough to make their previous album, Toxicity. Now, the lead singer of System of a Down, Serj Tankian, came out and said that was not the case. This material was not stuff that couldn't make Toxicity. It was just stuff that didn't really, exude the overall continuity of that album. And that was the only reason it wasn't on there. So obviously the guys from System of a Down were disappointed. Nobody wants that kind of stuff to get out there. There's a reason it's unfinished, and there's a reason that it's left off an album. Whatever the case is, for me, for instance, myself, if I'm filming a video and there's something I don't like, or I mess up a line, or I could just keep going, just depends how bad the mess up is, or I can just completely cut it out, or I might just film the whole part over again. Whatever it is, and there's a reason you don't put that stuff out there unless you're creating a blooper reel, or you just intentionally want fans to hear this stuff to say, hey, this is kind of rough cuts of what we were doing at that time. But there was disappointment. But the thing was, they didn't let it get to them too bad. They actually doubled down on the whole situation. So the internet dubbed all that material Toxicity 2. But that was not the name of the album, and it wasn't going to be the name of the album. Now, if anybody out there knows what the original name of this album was supposed to be, because I couldn't find an interview or a report that actually said it, but the band decided, okay, we're going to name this album Steal This Album because of the whole situation. The stuff got leaked out, the whole situation happened. They said, hell with it. Let's kind of make fun of it. Let's poke fun at it, because in the end, it doesn't matter. It's the songs on the album, and it's the material that's released. In the end, it was a pretty good album. Now, my personal favorite, because Toxicity was my favorite album by System of a Down. This had some pretty awesome songs on it as well. But it was their next album that I think is one of my favorites. It was called Mesmerize, but we'll get into that another time. But I think it's so cool what the band did and what they decided to name this album. And then the artwork, the cover art for the album, totally even triples down on it. So they completely went with the flow on the whole situation. But I think it's kind of cool that the story behind the name of the album generated from that situation. And hey, you got to give it to System of a Down. They just rolled with the punches. So again, I really think it's cool what System of a Down did on this album in creating the name for it. I think it was a cool story. Now, you got to realize something. I would love to do a story on System of a Down, and I may do that in a later video. Now, the thing I love most is you got to realize when Serj joined the band, the lead singer, he was almost 30 years old. So, it's never too late to go for your goals or your dreams, whatever it is you're passionate about. Go for it. Shit, it's never too late to do any of that. Whether it's wanting to be on YouTube creating content, whether it's wanting to be a musician, whether it's wanting to go out and try to be an actor, whether you want to be a lawyer and you're 50 years old and you decide to go to school for whatever it is. It doesn't matter. But again, I think it's so awesome what they did here. I think it's really cool that they decided to take the higher road instead of trying to go the route that Lars did with Napster, which again, on that, I don't even say he did the wrong thing, because you know how hard these guys work. Metallica's been around for ages and they work so hard on their music, and the reason you put it out there is so hopefully the fans will like it, and hopefully you can get money in return for the work you're putting in, because you know it's a lot of hours you put in a studio, and there's a lot of hours of practice just to even get to the level that they're at. So whichever road you decide to take, if it's justified and you think you're doing the right thing, then go for it. Then nobody can judge you. Well, they can try to, but it doesn't mean anything, because in the end we make our own decisions, right? But I gotta say that System of a Down, still this album, good album, cool story behind it. And again, do me a favor. If you like the content, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and there will be more content to come. And if there's anything you want me to talk about, drop it in the comment section. If there's a great artist, great album, interesting band story, anything you want, drop it down there. I'll look into it. And if it's great, if I think I can make something out of it, I'll make that video for you. But again, American Dream Channel, like and subscribe. Till next time, take care. I'm out.